So this couldn't be better. So typically when Sean and I are with people, there's one of three movies that actually people respond to. It's either Goonies, right? And then they do something around Mikey, or Rudy, and then they, they start to chant, or Lord of the Rings, right? And let's be clear, he wasn't one of the hobbits. He was the Hobbit, okay? Period. Whoa, but there is another movie. Last night we were hanging out with some folks, and this girl was emphatic. She goes, "That is not my favorite movie." 50 First Dates, do you not remember? Yeah, she goes, "I love that part where he does that dance with his chest." Well, as it turns out, there's like a great story behind this dance.
Well, it's an American classic by any standard.
Clearly.
Yeah, I think people,
I went home last night.
Smithsonian is going to put that T-shirt in the, right next to Neil Armstrong's thing. But it was computer generated. The little pectoral jiggle. Well, no, I mean, Adam Sandler wanted me to go to the gym for several hours a day for 6 weeks before we started so that I would be yoked up, to play the part of the wannabe. Protein shakes. Protein shakes. Yeah, protein shakes. It's not, remember protein shakes? It's not enough steroids. It's protein shakes. But when you've been lifting, guys, work with me on this, right? It's rock hard.
Like this?
Like you, like JR. Exactly.
Or maybe not.
I couldn't move it. So in the movie, they do this thing where underneath this mesh shirt, I had to watch it and slow it down. I'm like, man, how did they do that?
That's awesome. That's creativity at its best. That's really all we have for you. So hopefully that was helpful. Perfect. All right. So Sean and I met actually a year ago. Sean's working on this unbelievable project. We're going to kind of dive into a couple of key things here today. And the idea is,
wait. I want to say the name of the title, because in this room it'll get a reaction.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
You want to do that right now?
Well, just when it comes time.
You can do it now. Why don't you do it now? What's the name of your project? Tell them about it.
We're adapting a best-selling children's book called Number the Stars. No.
Nothing.
Nothing. No,
you shouldn't cheer.
You know why? It's because you're all too old to know the book. No, usually when I give leadership speeches at universities and stuff, with 19 and 20-year-old kids,
they love that book.
They read it 5 years ago, and they're.
Well, why don't you let's dive in. Tell them about Number of the Stars. Tell them about this new venture. So obviously you've been this extraordinaire sort of star. Had all these. I mean, one of the things that I love about Sean is it's true though, right, dude? Like one of the things we've talked about is how you've just kind of walked into these roles. And before you tell them about the film, why don't you tell them first? Tell them about the moment you found out you were going to play Samwise Gamgee.
Well, that I found that when I got the job, when they called to say, "You got it, it's you." I was in this little office space we had rented for our company. My wife and I have a film company called Lava Entertainment, and we were in our little offices. And Jeff Owens from Georgia, my assistant, was there, and he said, "Sean, I've got I think 2 agents and the lawyer on the phone. And whenever more than one of them calls you, it means you got a job. Like if it's bad news, they have to decide who gets the short straw and call you. It's bad news. But when it's good news, they all want credit for it, and they all want to share in the moment." So I kind of walked over, and I picked up the phone, and Mark Schwartz at William Morris said, "You did it, baby." And I hit the ground on my knees and started crying.
Now, why'd that happen?
Thanking God.
Why'd that happen?
Just 'cause I knew it'd be you always want to feel like what you're doing matters. And I knew that story and the effect of the story, that it has on people is really profound. And so I knew that I was going to get to do something that really mattered, and I thank God for it.
Sean, one of the things about this room, and one of the reasons why, honestly, we worked so hard, Sean and I did, to get here for this, is because every person in this room is responsible for telling a story that's far larger than themselves. The problem is, in this room, it doesn't feel as sexy as Lord of the Rings. Right? It doesn't feel as
yeah, it does.
clear.
I met the Nolan bad guys outside. They've rocked.
Yeah, they are pretty sweet. But it doesn't feel as clear. And I'm curious, what was it like? What's it like, dude, to be in a film where you know that, and I know it was hard at points, talk about that experience of just being in that film and being part of this story that's far larger than you, and why, how that kind of compels you.
I didn't have, when we were making the film, I wasn't so fixated on how the outside world was going to experience it. Yeah, what I was infatuated with and so grateful for was the fact that, when you make a big movie like that, there are hundreds of other people. Never mind the hundreds of digital artists who will be working on it for a year and a half after you're finished with it, but just the physical production, the people there, and everyone was expert at what they did, were filled with a sense of imagination and wonder and sense of purpose. And so to be working with, even the guy who designed the chainmail for the soldiers' outfits, for the orcs' costumes, that guy every day was clipping those things together. And then the people that were painting the sets, and they were just, it was constant motion and activity. And everywhere you looked, you just saw world-class artists and craftspeople and artisans who, whose work won't necessarily be known by the multitudes, by name, who really stops on the credits after, in minute 3 and goes, oh, that guy painted Rivendell, it's like they won't know that. But everybody knew that what we were working on was really special and, like you said, bigger than ourselves. And so you felt a sense of responsibility to doing that and kind of, you didn't want to be the weak link. You had to bring your A game every time you showed up.
That's good. One of the things I've learned from Sean already, and he's just consistently is encouraging me personally. We went to breakfast this morning, and he's pressing on me. He's like, dude, take seriously what you're doing. Don't downplay what you're doing, man. Like, I don't want to hear you say that statement about it not mattering as much as this or that. And I guess,
no. Yeah. Oh, wait, you said you had a moment of self-doubt where you weren't sure what you were doing, like you were doing enough to, like you hadn't fulfilled your purpose, which we should probably always all feel that. But I just, because I watched you over the hour and a half before that, fulfill an incredible mission with helping a whole lot of other people. It just seemed like the timeliness of that comment didn't make sense to me.
No, and I appreciate that. But I think that's one of the sentiments, right, of folks in this room probably at times. And so I think it's an important...
I feel it too. Yeah, I mean, we all do. But you should feel pretty good because you're doing all right.
Nice. Thanks, man. Did you guys hear that? Let's record that. That was pretty awesome. I'm just gonna be honest. All right. So we can go now. Your new film. So Sean, here's the thing, right? So Sean and I actually met. This is a great story. We met at this gathering a year ago. We were kind of helping him resource his film. I'll talk about that in a minute. But Sean has this deep passion for this film, which translates into how art, classically artists have been, and creatives, have been huge in terms of informing justice, helping people care about the right things. And this is something Sean cares deeply about, right? And so we actually ended up speaking at this thing together in San Fran around the U2 concert. And so we were talking about justice, talking about his film, and we had this promise of meeting Bono, actually. So, I mean, pretty awesome. I mean, Sean's great, but, Bono. So, no offense.
I wasn't there to meet me. I was there to meet
Bono. It was going to be ridiculous. So we were super excited about this.
It was funny, though. There were all these, it was kind of a socialite gathering. And the idea was people were going to connect in terms of the One campaign and really make a serious push with money and resources and stuff. And so, and that was going to kind of help facilitate the interaction with Bono. But we were on the way. You can tell that story?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, we were on, it was really, it's so funny how you interact with different people and patrons and this just unbelievable home and these people, and we come outside after we give our little talk and there's like limousines all set up and a bus, and we're all going to head to Oakland where the theater, the stadium is. And they usually seat about, 8 people, 10 people, but rich people kind of don't acknowledge space and time as it relates to others. It's just kind of like, so like 18 people were packed into this one limo with people like laying on the floor and champagne flutes and just kind of doing their thing. And I don't know, but anyhow, somebody had to go to the bathroom really bad, and the lady, the matron who had kind of orchestrated everything, it was like logistics, and no, we're not stopping, and we had been in traffic for like an hour and 20 minutes, and the guy's like, really? Right now it has to happen. And so he's closest to the window, so he tells the limo driver, and the limo driver pulls over, and the lady's like, what are you doing pulling over? Don't pull over. And so the guy like races out, and he comes back, and the limo driver's frazzled now because she's sort of screaming at him, and he takes the turn coming out of there a little too tight, and bam, flat tire in the limo with all these fancy people in their fancy clothes. It was hilarious. And in Oakland, in the center of Oakland, in like the hardcore part of Oakland. And JR and I jump out of the car.
That's a dangerous place, just so you know.
It's like the murder capital of the world.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Yeah. So JR and I jump out and we're like Batman and Robin, you know. You can decide who's who, but we're like, okay, we're going to change the tire. And we open the trunk up, and I'm looking for the champagne flutes, and we get the tire, and the tire iron wasn't the right size for the lug nuts. Like, I don't know why they didn't have the right size tire in there. So the two of us are flagging down, you know, traffic. Concert traffic was mostly what it was, but it's a little sketchy. So you want to tell that?
So he's trying to get these people to stop, right? And at one point I look at him and I'm like, dude, why can't you use your celebrity to get people to stop? He's like, dude, you need to stop being so intense, and then maybe they would stop.
It's a match made in heaven.
At that point we hugged and embraced, and we've been friends ever since.
Beautiful.
Right. So
I know. I'll drive for a second. The movie. We it's like, back and forth. We drive around, actually physically drive around. It's scary. Put your seatbelts on.
So tell them about your movie.
The movie, okay, so Number the Stars. I don't know how many of you know your Danish war history, but it's about two 10-year-old girls in Denmark in 1943, and what happens with them and their family during the few days that the Danish people evacuated 95% of their Jewish population, about 6,500 people. So it's a story about essentially 3 million, mostly Lutherans, helping their families and friends and neighbors, their Jewish population, and they, you know, alone in Europe can be proud to know that they did something. And Sweden mercifully took them in as political refugees. So in this story, it's a Newbery Award-winning classic. Lois Lowry, she also did The Giver, which is a very powerful book. That one got a little pulse. Did you hear that?
I did.
Yeah. And my wife and I, it's our passion project. It's, you know, we did a short film, a social justice short film actually, about a gang of Crips who kidnaps a cop because they believe he's guilty of murder, and the only way they're going to get justice is if they put him on trial themselves in their basement. And so it was and it got nominated for an Academy Award. And then we went on and I did Lord of the Rings. But we've been wondering, you know, what are we going to do? What's our thing going to be? You know, and I'm a filmmaker in my heart, and I want my wife and I to do something together. So we optioned the rights to the book. You know, we went looking specifically. I said, get all the Newbery Award winners. That's the National Association of Librarians. I said, that's going to be world-class stuff. Let's look through those and find one we want to do. And we found this one. My daughter had read it in the 4th grade, and then had convinced her teacher in the 5th grade that that's the book she should teach in the 5th grade. And it's very empowering. It's a scary story, but it's meant for children. And it's about how it's about the nature of bravery, and how even when there's danger, if you know what the right thing is to do, you just have to do it. And so this little girl at the end of the story goes running through the woods, the Nazi-patrolled woods, by herself with a parcel that is from the resistance, and to try and get it to the fisherman who's going to be spiriting away her friends and the family. And if they don't get this, they could be in real trouble. It could be their lifetimes. And her uncle at the end of the day says that you can be proud. You saved Ellen's life, and you really did that, you know. So when we talk about you're going to introduce the
in a minute. Let me ask you a couple questions about that, because I think what I'd love to do is dig into the creative process for a moment around the film, just so they can learn a bit from what you're doing.
Yeah.
So we talked this morning about how there's a certain way you're going at this film.
Yeah.
There's a certain way you're approaching it, and you knew at a very young age that you wanted to create something like this, and you wanted to create it this way. Can you talk about that as an artist? So you've obviously achieved quite a lot. Why would you step all the way back now and in many ways risk everything to create this thing? Talk about that process for these folks a bit.
Yeah, you know, I've always thought of it as the approach. We're raising 100% of the equity for the film first, before we have a distribution deal in place and before we have cast members attached. And it's, you know, in the filmmaking universe, you know, it's mission impossible. It's just really, really hard way to try and do that, because investors want to see a kind of a demonstrable way that their risk is being mitigated, and the way we're doing it requires a leap of faith. And I mean, we have lots of ways of demonstrating that it's a it's a really world-class thing to be a part of. But, you know, cold, hard cash, people really want to look at it. So, but my commitment to doing it this way, I was always thinking of it as protecting the creative process. But when you and I had breakfast and you were describing it, you made me realize that it actually is the creative process. Like, the journey to get the movie made the way we want to make it requires all of the discipline and sensitivity of an artist. And it's funny because I never would have thought that I would go into months and months of focused study in securities law. But I'm doing it because I want to protect my vision of the film. So if I learn those things, if I learn those concepts and ideas, and I can communicate them, and I can, you know, prosecute a venture capital space, you know, then I can design a movie and film a movie that satisfies my, well, not just my interpretation of the story, but my sense of integrity. And it's not that if you have other kinds of collaborators, there's not integrity, but it's just really important to me that we're doing it this way. And I'm willing to fail and do it this way rather than compromise. I mean, there's a lot of compromise that's necessary, but in a certain area, I can't compromise. It feels like it's not a compromise just for me. It's a compromise for everything that will be affected by it, all the people that will work for it, all the people that will help promote it, all the people who will see it, you know.
I'm curious, you made me think of something. I think this applies for us, right, as a community. Is it possible to create something lasting and meaningful for the world without risk?
I don't know.
What do you think?
Probably. Somebody probably did it.
Somewhere?
Yeah, it's not usually.
Right. We'll talk about that.
You just never want to say never about something. You know,
sure.
maybe some medically sealed infant draws a picture that changes the world. I don't know, you know, but so they, you know, they. In fact, there is risk, and you know, Shakespeare says that reputation is everything in Othello. You know, you take that which is. What is it? You take that which is bestial or something, but then you take away my reputation, you take away the immortal part of my soul. This is the second part of that quote. And so when you invest your time and energy doing something, or your money, which we're doing and a lot of people do, in something, and there isn't a guaranteed return, either fiscal or you know, the respect of the people you want to appreciate whatever it is you're doing. I mean, sometimes you just do stuff just for yourself. But there is a risk. There's a risk that what your intention to have happen doesn't mature. It doesn't come to fruition. And you know, I mean, a lot of people risk a lot. I see people who do things, you know, some amazing piece of art, and like, what's the risk of that art? Well, they have to travel like on a plane to get that piece of art. And like, what if they don't pack it properly? What if this one-off thing, this one thing that's so beautiful because of where it was made and who made it and the way they did it, and it could break? Yeah. You know, no, you think about what's my risk, but like the thing itself is vulnerable.
No, it's true. So Sean, you were deeply moved a while ago. You heard the story about human trafficking. You heard the story about justice and mercy, these sorts of issues. And obviously, one of the things we were talking about last night, which is pretty remarkable actually, is this new film that he's creating is actually the story of the right kind of trafficking. It's essentially transporting human beings for the right ends. That's the entire film is about. That's the whole point of the narrative. But you heard Gary Haugen speak from International Justice Mission, and it just deeply moved you. You talk a bit about what you're actually here because Bethany from IJM Institute, who's down front here, has brought you out. She's talking this afternoon, right? And you know, we kind of had this conversation about the art you're creating, moving people towards an end. Talk about the end.
Yeah,
and talk about this.
Like I said last night to a group of people that we were talking to, that it is our intention to provoke young people into feeling a sense of confidence in doing the right thing for others. You want people, and my daughter, I saw it in her spirit. I saw her read this book before we knew we wanted anything to do with it, and then read it again and again. She said she's read it I think 16 times, and it feels good to her to see this little girl help her friend, and to see that the outside world is dangerous and scary and that people feel threatened, but there is something that comes in front of her that she can do, and she volunteers to do it, and she does it, and it's really empowering. And so we want, with this film, to create an experience that will empower people to be active, to be social advocates in whatever realm. I mean, this social justice piece that Bel Air Presbyterian was the church that we would go to when we lived in Encino. Amazing church, beautiful like this, but there was a view out of the back that overlooked the whole valley. And Gary Haugen came. You guys, does everybody know who Gary Haugen is? I mean, this guy, he just absolutely blew my mind. This is years ago. I mean, it's like in 2004 or something like that. And yeah, I mean, you know, I think artists thrive when they feel like they can make a difference. And that's why, you know, artists that you were saying earlier have such an impact, because if there's something that you can do, if through your music or through your painting or through whatever it is you're writing or whatever, if you can process ideas and feelings and information in a way that inspires other people, then you're contributing to the development of our species. And so when I looked at Gary and what he was doing, there's something so, the fact that he was making specific and tangible a problem that's so unbelievable to even try and comprehend, and that he could make everyone in the room in that day, and everyone in the room that he spoke in the next day, and then the next day, and then in the South, and then he was in Jersey, you know, he's all over the place. And this guy is making people feel like there are things in your life that you can do that can actually save lots of lives of people. So I love that we're making a fiction that celebrates that spirit inside of every human being, and points and directs people towards that goodness that's in us. And I love that it can be a feeder system into Gary's work or other people's work who are deploying, giving like a structure to that instinct that people have to help. Because I was on that President's Council, and what I learned, if anything, and I said this last night, is that you can have 1,000 volunteers show up, but if you don't have work for them, if you don't have some sort of an organization for them, everybody kind of goes home feeling like, well, you know, I tried to help. And you don't want that. You want every ounce of human spirit that wants to help someone else to be able to find its target. And Gary is just a force multiplier for that. And I'm happy to work with him and for him. And hopefully our movie will contribute in some way.
That's awesome. You told a story last night about failure in trying to help people when you were part of this council and Katrina hit. I think one of the important things about creating anything meaningful is you will fail. It's just inevitably going to be part of it. And I think one thing that's been fun for me personally to learn from Sean is just that it's like, who cares? So you failed, like, go again. Like, give it another shot. Like, what's the worst that could happen? People will think you're a fool. Well, you are a fool, so such is life, right? Like, my wife would go, well, yeah, I kind of knew. It's no big deal. You know what I mean? Like, we're not covering it up. But, like, you told this story last night about, you know, I sort of gave away the end. But tell him. I think it's a great
story?
Yeah, tell him. It's a great story.
Well, I'm on this, it was President Bush's nonpartisan council, and the mission of the council is to promote a culture of volunteerism and civic engagement. And when Katrina hit, like everyone else in the country, I was just blown away and like wondering what I could do. And, you know, I've got this shirt with a seal on it with the White House logo, and I'm supposed to be some kind of ambassador for volunteerism. And if there's ever a moment for the country to, you know, activate and volunteer, now is it. But I called the White House and I couldn't necessarily get a hold of anybody there at first. And so I'm just sitting around. I was trying to think, what can I do? And I thought, okay, I'm going to model. I had a friend who's a history professor, and we had developed a movie about Galveston, Texas, about a storm like this. And he happened to have a meeting in Sugar Land, Texas, with like 5 churches. And they sent out emails saying, this is the stuff we need. We need, what do you call it, formula, baby formula. We need diapers. We need this and this. We don't want this and this and this and this. And it was like, okay, that's specific. I can work with that. So I said, I'm going to go down and I'm going to model for other people what it's like to get involved. I mean, I'd already gone on national television and the radio and done a whole bunch of things about give money to the Red Cross. You got to, you know, just everybody ring, you know, the president's ringing the bell on the front lawn. Everybody give to the Red Cross, and hopefully their infrastructure will help the people as, in the most acute, specific way. But this, I wanted to do something else, and I wanted to demonstrate for other people that who want to like physically do something. So like, I was moving at about 1,000 miles an hour, and I just called one of my buddies and said, okay, and this was, 2004 was Katrina, and I said, all right, get 6 pickup trucks and meet me at the Commons in Calabasas in like 2 hours. Right, and then I go down to the Commons and I have my list, and I go into Ralph's, which is like the one place in the area where we live that is where there's people coming in and out all the time. I suppose a couple miles away there's like a Home Depot, but it was the most specific concentration of people who would be likely to have discretionary money that they could just contribute. So I went there, and it's a private place. The context of this story was that I was thinking about what inhibits people's giving, right, and what inhibits the ability for non-governmental agencies and other people to like have a more immediate and profound impact. And I was thinking of this, and so it's private property. And so the guy who ran the Ralph's was like, listen, I can't give you permission to do this, because I also called like Channel 7 News and said, listen, I had my publicist call. Sean Astin is doing an impromptu distribution site, and he would love for you to cover it. They think they could, they're going to have these. And he just told them what we were doing, what I was trying to do. And I also had coordinates. If that stuff gets to the I-10 intersection with the whatever freeway between 9 and 11 on Saturday, we're going to have a group of people who are going to pick it up, and they're going to distribute to all these specific people who need them. So there was like an endpoint. Anyhow, the guy says, you got to talk to the manager of the property, and it's Saturday, and they don't know if they can, or it's whatever day, they don't know. So I get the guy on the phone, and I realize that like I'm out here, and I'm pulling all these people together, volunteers, and we're making signs, and we're grabbing these things, and I'm negotiating with him to like be helpful. And he says, well, listen, if you get shot, or if anybody breaks their leg or something, and you're doing this activity. By the way, I'd stopped off at the sheriff's office and the fire department ahead of time on the way in and told them what I was doing. So the sheriff's office was like, let Sean do his thing. But this private guy was saying, this is a private company, and if it's sued or something. So I said, okay, well, whatever. These people are suffering. They're on their rooftops, and it's hot, and they don't have water, and all right, whatever we have to do. He said, well, it's Saturday, but I can get Margaret to drive down to downtown LA and get the form and drive it back out to you. So it's probably going to be like, 45 minutes, an hour, maybe a little longer. I said, that's okay. It'll take us that time to get like kind of sorted out and everything. And so he did it. And then I had left a message or two at the White House, and I finally got a call back from someone in the President's Counsel's office, which is run with the AmeriCorps group. But anyhow, it was, I think, probably a young person, 28 years old or something like that. And I said, listen, in order to do this, I said, I haven't been directed anywhere. I'm just doing something because when it comes time to tell the story of what happened and promote volunteerism, I don't want to have done nothing. I want to have done something specific. And so this is what I'm doing. I said, I'm concerned because this guy, is sending out this document that says that will assume liability if anything goes wrong. And the person at the White House said, well, be careful.
That's hopeful.
It kind of all fell apart from there. We didn't, turned out there were other people doing a massive, like they figured it out better than I did. But I just realized that liability is the great impediment to people moving forward, more than anything, really.
Yeah, when you think about that for your own stories, and you think about that for the stuff that you create, one of the things that I love that I'm learning personally from Sean, and even learning personally my own journey, is what liabilities are keeping you from endeavoring to create something meaningful for the world. We've all got liabilities. How our senior pastors might interpret us, how our bosses might perceive us, how our friends, what they might think if we tell that kind of story in that context. What if I support that person and, they end up failing? And I think that one of the great obstacles to creativity is liability. But I think one of the things, Sean, that I appreciate about you is that you consistently are trying to press through those liabilities. And it's just sort of saying, look, here's the deal. My calling is to create something meaningful for the world, to tell great stories that compel people to action. and it's a
funny,
liability.
when I ask these people for money, right? It's like I'm not asking it for me. I am.
Sure.
It's what I want to do, but I know the hundreds of people that it will directly, if that money is going to, I know the crew people we're going to hire. I know I just know that, and it's weird. You just said it in the inverse. You said, there's people you're working with, it might hurt them if they're involved with it. And I'm like, if I don't do this, I'm hurting people who don't realize they're being hurt because I'm not creating that opportunity for them that they should have.
That's good. All right, one last question. We're kind of wrapping up here. So what's one of your favorite moments from all of these movies you've done? I mean,
Besides the breast dance?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that back up.
Sorry.
I mean, you're welcome to try that again if you'd like.
I can't.
No? Okay.
Contractually,
so what's one of your, contractually, you're not allowed to ever do it again?
Non-disclosure.
What's one of your favorite moments? What's one of your favorite moments from a film that you just kind of, as we close up here, what's just, is it Run on the Field, Rudy? Is it, what is it?
The one that always pops into my mind is a little
independent
independent film that nobody's seen. And it was released as Bigger Than the Sky. And it's basically kind of an homage and a send-up of community theater, and it's set in Portland, Oregon. And the director there's a guy, he's working in an office, and he's kind of just a plain guy. And he just works in this office, and he decides that he wants to, he saw a sign, like a flyer on the lamppost coming into the office that there were auditions for the regional theater production of Cyrano de Bergerac. And so he just decides at one point, I quit. And he goes down and he pulls the thing off and he goes to the audition and he wants to be like someone in the back. It's just a big thing for him to have gone out of his comfort zone. And the director, this director woman says, "My God, that's Cyrano." And he's like, "What?" She says, you are Cyrano. And he's like, no, I can't do it. I've never done this before. You can absolutely do it, And, no, I can't. She says, "Trust me, anyone can do this. Through my guidance, you can do it." So they go through the whole movie realizing very clearly the guy can't do it. He's just not good at it. He's terrible. He's nervous and he's subconscious. He can't memorize the words. Every time he talks, the words all come out wrong. And so they realize in the last minute they have to go to their nemesis, their arch enemy, troupe, and see if their grand guy, Ken Zorbel, will come and step in at the last moment as Cyrano. And I got to play Ken Zorbel. And it was just, the quintessential arrogant, just pompous actor part. I cannot act with this here, blah, 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 and it was just really, it was really fun to prance around on a stage acting like a total, I think some part of myself is that guy. And to be able to be that guy and point at him and go, "That guy's funny, isn't he?" Thank God I'm not like that.
Crazy. All right, closing comment. The quote from the movie. The
one that I just signed?
Yeah, the quote from the movie.
There's that particular image. I signed tons of images, but there's the one that the pastor just, for his sons, it's a picture of Samwise, just kind of a really soft, glowing look where he's kind of looking really hopeful. And it's actually a scene that was not in the movies until 9/11 happened. And then they went back to the book and they found a quote that they thought spoke to the kind of global feeling that happened in response to that tragedy. And then that speech, and they sent it through on my fax machine, and I read it, and I just started crying. I cry a lot when they call from New Zealand. I don't know why, but the quote is just when Gollum is in Osgiliath with the ruins, which is the city that was sacked, and Frodo is just spent from having been with the ring for too long, and Sam tells this story about it's the great in the great tales. The ones that really matter, the ones that last, are about the ones who don't give up, the ones who keep going when there's nothing left except the will to keep going. And he then says, we have to, they're fighting. We have to keep fighting for something. And Frodo says, "Well, Sam, what are we fighting for?" And I say, "There's some good left in the world, and it's worth fighting for."
So we'll close with that.
It's true. I know it's true.
There is some good left in the world. And the reason why you're here is because you exist to point to that good. And I hope that as you hear a story of a man who truly can't walk into many places without being seen, he's committed to the same kind of good that you are. And I hope, we really hope that you're encouraged to keep on telling the story about the good, because it's worth it. So thank you, Sean.
Two quick things. One is that I have to race to the airport right now. Like literally, the car's outside, and if I miss my plane, I won't be at my daughter's back to school night, and that will be not good. So, my thing is, I would love to stop and sign and things, and that always there's such a good energy that happens, but I can't do that right now. I'm really inspired, genuinely inspired by being here. I mean, I think they're videoing it, so they had to have these lights on, but they kind of bum me out because I'd rather see you guys more. Going through the hall and talking to people and seeing the literature that's out there and knowing the purpose that's brought you together and knowing the organizers just a little bit that I do, it's just a sacred thing, and I just honor it and I value it. I'm glad that Bethany, who you're going to hear from later, who works with iJam, who's just a great human being and really smart and has got some good stuff to offer you. You'll enjoy it. But she said, even though we had our conversations, I had a lot going on. If she wouldn't have sent a couple of emails just reminding when it was and kind of keeping an open mind that I couldn't commit to coming, the fact that you did that, I get to be here and I'm the better for it. So thank you, and thank all of you very much.
Thanks, John.